This is Michelle Hughes from Ageless and Timeless. Today's podcast is brought to you by Water and Wellness. Recently, I had the opportunity to visit Water and Wellness at their offices, and I can tell you that as far as you and I are concerned and our health is concerned, this is one of the most important places that you can go to find water that is purified and products that will help your longevity and your overall health. Visit waterandwellness.com to learn how you can take control of your drinking water and learn about those natural additives to optimize your health and longevity. Contact Stacy at 877-296-6880. Use the Ageless code and you'll get a 20% discount on all your products.
My love for you is immeasurable. My respect for you immense. You're ageless, timeless, lace and fineness, your beauty and elegance.
Good morning. This is Michelle Hughes from Ageless and Timeless. Well, today I've added another guest to talk to us about a subject that we had mentioned on an earlier podcast with Robert Slovak. And at the time that Robert came on, about 2 months ago, we ran out of time, and I promised that I would have him come back to talk about deuterium-depleted water because it's such an important subject. This is going to be a life-changing podcast today, so please listen and watch carefully. The guest that's joining us is his partner in the deuterium-depleted water business. The company's name is Light Water, and you can find them on drinklightwater.com. And light, by the way, is L-I-T-E. And we'll explain to you what we mean by light in just a moment. Victor and Robert have known each other for many years. Victor is an amazingly accomplished scientist as well. He's been in many, many industries. Most recently, though, his passion, as is Robert's, is deuterium-depleted water. Because we're so short of time to talk about everyone's background, and Robert, of course, has already been on, I'm going to just right away join in with them and have you hear what they have to say about this very important subject. So welcome, Robert and Victor.
Thank you, Michelle.
I guess good morning. Yes, how are you, Michelle?
We're doing just beautiful. I'm here in Burbank today, so at the studio at UBNGO, and we're being photographed or being videoed, I should say, by one of the very capable technical people here. His name is Kerry, so say hello to Kerry.
Hello, Carrie.
And he's saying hello back to you. So, okay, so most important question. What is deuterium-depleted water? Everybody wants to know. They're hearing this buzzword. So would you give us the 30,000-foot view or explanation of DDW?
Wow. This is one of the rare health subjects that you just have to have some background in and go a little bit down the rabbit hole before you even get to the advanced stage of the presentation. Because we found out the hard way that 95+% of the people, whether professional, doctors, millennials, homeless, people really don't even know what the word deuterium means. And I think that's a special consequence of the American education system, because when you go to other countries, a much higher percentage of the people know what it is. So, and also, Michelle, the buzzword really, deuterium depleted water is important, but it's not the water that's important, it's what it does. And what it does is deuterium depletion of the deuterium that's in your body. Let's start there because it helps clarify things quite a bit. So
Perfect.
That's the objective, deuterium depletion. And you can consider deuterium depletion a new science, a new revolutionary health science not as new as you might guess, because as Victor will explain in a little while, the history of it, the Russians, who are best known for this new science and its development, really were playing around with it as early as the late 1950s.
Wow.
And deuterium was only discovered in 1931. And the point is, deuterium is everywhere. The universe and our planet is filled with deuterium, and it's one of the most interesting things that it went unnoticed for so long. So I would like you to, if you could, put on that slide just to show people of the periodic table.
Is that okay? Is that it right there?
Yeah.
Okay,
So,
perfect.
So the periodic table, really, this table, in case you're not even familiar with it, is identifies all of the atoms of all of the elements that make up the entire physical universe. This is it. This is what God made, and it's all in a nice, tidy package called the periodic table. So I want to focus on the first and lightest element, which happens to be hydrogen, up in your upper left-hand corner. I believe that's where it should appear. And hydrogen is, as you know, one of the main components that make up the water molecules. Now, in each of these elements, not all of them, but most of these elements have several versions or several forms, and they vary in the number of neutrons in the nucleus of these atoms. So just in case we have to go back a little further, the nucleus of the atom includes a proton and most of the time a neutron, except in the case of simple hydrogen gas, which is just a proton in the nucleus. So the nucleus of atoms, which contains protons and neutrons, is orbited by electrons to make it a neutral species. But within a given atom or a given element, such as hydrogen, there are several forms. And what causes the variation is the number of neutrons in that nucleus. So there are three forms which we now call scientifically isotopes of most of the elements. In the case of hydrogen, the simple ordinary hydrogen, which is a proton and an electron, we call protium. That's what scientists refer to it as. Now, if that hydrogen it takes on a neutron into the nucleus, we refer to that as deuterium. So now what's unique about this? The neutron and a proton are just about the same mass. So just by adding that neutron to such a simple element, we actually double the weight. It's the only element in which has an isotope that's double the weight of the basic ordinary form. And this changes everything. It's one of the most dramatic things in all of science, something so simple. Now, there is a third isotope, and that third isotope, which we aren't even going to discuss more than one sentence worth, is called tritium, and it has two neutrons in the nucleus, making it radioactive, and it's very, very rare, and we'll never mention it to you again.
Okay.
Now, here's the aha moment. The water, as you know, is H2O. There is more than one kind of molecule of water, because the hydrogen can be the ordinary hydrogen called protium, or the hydrogen that makes up a water molecule can be the deuterium. And because both isotopes in nature combine with oxygen to make a water molecule. Now, essentially, we identify these as if it's just the ordinary hydrogen, 2 hydrogens and 1 oxygen, H2O, we call that light water because it's lighter. If it contains an ordinary hydrogen and a deuterium atom version of hydrogen, we actually technically call that semi-heavy hydrogen. Often people just refer to it as heavy water. I'm sorry, not hydrogen, but heavy water. If it has 2 deuterium hydrogen atoms and an oxygen atom, we call that heavy water only. Essentially, all of the water on Earth in any form, fresh water, ocean water, frozen water, water vapor, etc., all is made up of both light and heavy water molecules. Something hardly anyone ever gave a thought to in even most of my career. The ratio of light to heavy water molecules is about 3,300 light water molecules to 1 heavy water molecule. It doesn't sound like a lot. It sounds like there's a lot more light water. And that's one of the reasons why it was so overlooked, and its significance in biology and physiology was so overlooked. But as you will learn, it is profound.
So, Robert and Victor, what is the damage that, quote, heavy water with the deuterium included, what is the damage that it does to us, to the body?
Well, Victor is going to get into that detail because I'm working my way down into the cell.
Oh,
so
good.
Since the cell, since this 1 in 3,300 comes out to be something your audience will understand. It's about 6 drops of deuterium or heavy water in every liter of regular water that you get out of your tap, you get out of your purifier, you get out of your distiller, you buy in bottled water. 6 drops of deuterium heavy water in every liter.
Okay.
Doesn't sound like a lot,
No.
but keep this in mind. We often say as scientists that this represents 150 parts per million of deuterium in
Right.
in water.
So
All the water in our, pardon?
Excuse me, but by the time we're adults, if you've been drinking water, of course, since you're a child, how much deuterium is now absorbed in your body versus eliminated? And in other words, if you went and had it measured, what's the average person's deuterium level going to be?
Exactly what water is, because as I'm about to tell you, we are, as you know, 2/3 of our body weight is water.
Right.
But much more significantly and shocking is that 98.8% of all the molecules in the body are water molecules. That's 98.8%. It's one of the most shocking things I have ever been exposed to. I mean, you're basically a captive, organized set of water molecules. So with 150 parts per million in water in the world, and because you consume that water, your body water is also about 150 parts per million.
Okay.
If I could add to that.
Go ahead.
If I could add to that, so 6 drops doesn't seem like very much in a liter of water. However, as Robert said, because most of our body is made up of water molecules, when you look into our blood plasma, you see that deuterium is actually, there's 4 times more deuterium than the most vital nutrients and minerals that our body needs, such as glucose, magnesium, potassium, and so on. So 4 times more in our blood than glucose. That's significant because whereas glucose is a primary energy molecule of our body, deuterium is kind of a contaminant. So if you have 4 times more of the contaminant than you do of the most vital molecule that you need for energy, you start to look deeper into what's going on here.
Yes, and that signifies the impact of deuterium in our physiology. So now that we're out of the science rapids here, and we both, Victor and I, and I'd say most of the health science community would say that this discovery of deuterium and what it does to the body is perhaps the most significant health science discovery of our time, because you're going to see that it impacts, there's every single process, every single element of the body. Because water is so ubiquitous in the body, it's all affected by the deuterium, every process. So if you remember nothing else, pay attention to this statement that Victor is then going to expound upon. It just turns out that this deuterium from heavy water molecules in all the water we consume is toxic to most of the critical functions in our 50 trillion cells. Unbeknownst to us, this stealthy deuterium atom ends up to cause great damage every second of our lives from birth till death. And this is what gives way to the science of deuterium depletion and how it can lead you to live a better life. So Victor's now going to take us into the mitochondria. Most of you know that the mitochondria makes the most critical substance in the body, which enables you to live and have energy. It's called ATP.
ATP, right. That's what I was asking earlier, is how do we know that the depletion of deuterium is actually demonstrated by how we feel from the difference of not having it, of eliminating it and having the ATP and the mitochondria of the cell, having it be cleaned of this contaminant. So Victor, you're on.
Well, yes, and you will see that there's many ways to actually measure this quantitatively, but there is nothing like actually experiencing the energy from depleting the body of deuterium.
Okay.
Take it away, Victor.
Okay, Victor.
I'm going to start with a quick history lesson. So deuterium was discovered in the early 30s. Before that, it wasn't known if they thought there was only one type of water, and it turned out that there was this heavier component to it. So when it was discovered, they wanted to see did it behave biologically, did it behave differently than other water. And so they synthesized pure heavy water, which doesn't exist in nature. Like Robert said, we only have about 150 parts per million on average on the planet. But when they concentrated and make pure heavy water, keep in mind this heavy water looks, tastes, behaves at the surface, observable level, just like regular water. Then they gave 30% heavy water to animals, everything from simple life forms up to mammals, mice in this instance. And they noticed that the animals died on the 5th day. And so they realized that heavy water is not like regular water. And then it wasn't until the 50s that the Russians said, okay, if heavy water damages the organism, destroys, kills a cell, what does light water do? And so they discovered that when water was reduced in deuterium, that it actually prolonged lifespan and all the health markers improved. So, and then that was in the late 50s, early 60s. But the mechanism of how deuterium did its damage didn't really get revealed until rather recently in our timeline, 2007. And what was proven was that how deuterium damages the mitochondria. Mitochondria produces energy. It's a very complex system of different cycles that break down what you eat, primarily glucose, into protons. And these protons get shuffled through something called the electron transport chain to the very last step. And this, what you're seeing, is the very last step. It's called ATP synthase nanorotor. And it's called a nanorotor because it looks and functions just like a motor. It spins at 9,000 RPM, and it runs on protons, hydrogen protons, and these protons get shuffled into the motor, which causes it to spin. As the rotors spin, they produce ATP. They actually take ADP and add one phosphor group, and then produce ATP, and ATP is the primary currency of our cell in terms of energy. So these protons that run the ATP synthase nanomotor are they have an invader, which is deuterium. Now, in these protons, about 1 every 15,000 that comes into this motor is what's called a deuteron. A deuteron is simply a deuterium without the electron. So instead of getting a regular proton, this motor gets a deuteron. This deuteron is twice the weight, right, as Robert mentioned. So it has double the mass, double the size. It does not fit into this rotor. So it causes it to jam and it causes it to stutter. And this happens continually every 15 seconds in every cell of our bodies. So this is a cumulative effect. And this is ultimately why we have this problem of aging. I've kind of been an armchair gerontologist most of my life trying to unravel the mysteries of aging. And so when I came upon this, it really was an aha moment, because you can explain the damage that is done purely mechanically. This motor is quite, if you go to YouTube or anywhere and start watching videos of this, you find these little nano machines are quite complex and quite incredible that we have these in our mitochondria doing all this work. But we have in the mitochondria are a series of gates in the Krebs cycle, and the Krebs cycle is what breaks down our glucose and sugars, fats, all our food down to the protons that we need to create this fuel for the ATP synthase nanomotor. So it's just, we have so much of it in our environment, we're not able to stop it from going into the electron transport chain. So this becomes a cumulative effect. Once the rotor gets hit, a number of times, it starts to break down, which signals a cascade of senescence, meaning the cell begins to die. And this is why this is the theory behind this, or this leads to the theory of why we lose 1% of our function every year once we mature. So we're talking about everything, our energy production, our metabolism, our cardiovascular function, on and on and on. And this has to do with this constant mechanical impingement on our energy production pathways by this deuteron, which the body mistakes as a proton, but it being twice the size, it has no place in the electron transport chain in this motor and just simply damages it. And over time, this is what you see aging is.
And you lose, there's a nice curve that shows how the average person simply loses mitochondria from birth till death.
And when you're young, you have many mitochondria in the cell, and each of those mitochondria each mitochondria may have 30,000 nanomotors. And as you get older, you have less mitochondria in the cell. You have less nanomotors. You start diminishing until you're a 10th to 20th of what you were when you were at your peak. So by removing this deuterium from our diet, primarily in the liquids we drink, we can extend the life of our mitochondria, and we could start to reverse some of the damage that has been done cumulatively over decades of life, simply because our planet has an overabundance of this deuterium. So the work that the Russians did was it correlated and proved the correlation between lifespan, health span, and areas of the planet where deuterium is 10 to 20% lower naturally. And
I think it's important. It's only 10 to 20% lower in the area that Victor's going to talk about. And this is really, a relatively small decrease. But when you are exposed to lower deuterium water from birth till death, and it's in your mother's breast milk, it's maybe in the yak milk, your plants grow in it, the cows drink it, the milk has it. When you just have an entire life of deuterium depleted water, it results in what Victor is going to tell you about the culture that has this.
Victor, so They say apoptosis is every 7 years, right? Cell turnover. How does the depletion of deuterium affect the number of years for apoptosis, and what is the effect that you feel as a human being on your body by having that change?
Okay, so the first question is how does deuterium affect apoptosis, right?
Correct.
So everything essentially is a copy of a copy of a copy, right? Your DNA, your cells is a copy of a copy. So basically, there's this thing called proton motive force. So proton motive force is increased by 6 times when you drop your deuterium levels by over 40%. So it basically increases the usable life of that cell because there's less damage. It's like if you had a vehicle and you bought 2 vehicles, exactly the same vehicle off the lot, and one you put good fuel in, high octane, clean fuel, clean the engine now and then, and the other one you just put the regular or the worst fuel you could, 87 octane, just contaminants in it. And you will see that even though you're starting out mechanically on par, same exact automobile, you will see the signs of wear, tear, and aging on the one that gets the fuel that has more contaminants in it. So that's a simple explanation, but the life of the cell is increased because you have the ability to produce more oxygen and more ATP. When you have more ATP, you have a greater ability for your detox pathways to work. And the optimal integrity of the cell is maintained longer. Does that answer your question?
It does. And then my second question is, how long does it take to feel the difference if you start a depletion program, a deuterium depletion program? How much time does it take before? I know every body is different, but just as on an average, when do people start?
On an average, when you start getting on a deuterium depleted lifestyle program, which primarily consists of drinking deuterium depleted water, you will go down about 0.5 point to 1 point per day. So you can to get to an ideal level, which is below 120 ppm, might take you a month to 3 months, depending on what else you're doing, what you're eating, what else you're drinking, so forth and so on. How well your body is, how much deuterium you have in your tissues, all that is a factor. But typically about 30 to 90 days, you will start to see, or if you do after about 30 to 90 days, and I would say 45 being the average. If you do a test, there's a saliva test you can do to see what your deuterium levels are. You will see that you're at 120 or below. And then as you keep going, you'll start to recognize some of the benefits.
Well, that's what I was really getting at is, so, it's one thing to be tested and to see that you're dropping. It's quite another thing to feel the difference in your body. So what kind of evidence would the average person feel after getting down to that level that you just described?
Well, the first thing is virtually everyone notes a true market increase in energy. Okay. It's some people, it's really extreme, but everyone reports, wow, I wake up different. My life is different. I can run better. I can exercise better. And so this is the most profound, probably and immediate factor of deuterium depletion. But the consequences extend to many aspects depending upon one's age, etc. And you begin to see certain things that you've accumulated. Let's call them defects. And in my case, it has been quite dramatic. Even though I've lived a very healthy lifestyle, there are an assortment of things. And I know that, Michelle, you have your assortment of things and our friends have their assortment of things. But many of these little physiological defects begin to disappear and minimize. That has been probably, from a testimonial standpoint, the most general benefit of deuterium depletion in a fairly short time.
So we're just getting to the pragmatics, because I don't want our viewers to hear all about this and not know how to potentially, if they are interested in experiential, how would they get on the program? How do you help them?
Good
I know you have a
question.
company. I know you have the water here, and you're bringing it in from Russia. So why don't you talk to us a little bit
Yeah.
about the pragmatics?
Okay, here's pragmatic. First, make no mistake, virtually all the water you are going to encounter in your life, whether it's from your uncle's farm in Idaho, or it's from the mountains of the highest peak in Washington State, it's all going to be about 150. Now,
Right.
there are some bottled waters that are readily available that may go down as far as 130. And if you had been on that bottled water for your entire life, from baby till death, you would have definitely benefited from the improvement. But for most of us, we don't have that advantage. We have to deplete it more profoundly than just down to 130. So compliance is the most difficult part. If you take your allocated amount of deuterium depleted water a day, let's say it's 1 liter to 2 liters per day, you have to watch that you are not going to just contaminate your body by drinking energy drinks,
Right.
soft drinks,
Right, yeah.
beer. Everything that has water is
Right.
going to add deuterium back to your body.
Right. So even
And
like
that is-
a hot herbal tea, you still have to put the deuterium depleted water as
Yes,
the water that you're using.
you're going to forget about, what about your Starbucks? It's going to add all the,
Yeah.
a full pint or so of deuterium back into your body.
You've done more harm than good, and here you are investing in something that you're actually contraindicating by not
Yes.
even realizing it. So
You're
what
wasting money.
about a shower? What about your?
Nothing. No, nothing there of any significance.
It's only
But
drinking water. Okay.
You might go buy almond milk or macadamia milk. Forget it. You have to make your own with deuterium depleted water. That's the
Good point,
only
Robert.
way to stay on that program.
Okay.
And certainly once you've depleted for 90 days or more, you can cheat a little, because your levels are
Yes.
low enough where a little bit won't hurt you. But certainly in the process of depleting, it helps that 80% or more of the liquids you consume daily are deuterium depleted, to get that half to 1 ppm reduction daily.
So I have another question then. So is this a lifetime commitment, or can you get to a certain level and then what happens? I mean, do you
Lifetime commitment if
Okay.
you want to enjoy all the benefits that you're going to experience for
Okay.
your lifetime. And one of the things that's a very practical one, there is no precise definition of deuterium depleted. So there are people who are very envious of deuterium depleted water access, because there is so little made in the world, probably for less than 20,000 people at this time. Okay? So it's in relative short supply, but it's also relatively unknown. So there are companies, there have been several, that say deuterium depleted, and they don't tell you how much. So even if your body is 150 parts per million and all the water on the planet is about 150, some people sell 140 and call it deuterium depletion. Some people have only 130 parts per million and call it deuterium depleted, because there's no rule about it. Now, ours happens to be, we make the lowest deuterium water in the world, and we make 2 types. One is at 10 parts per million, and one is at 5 parts per million. And I'll show you them right now, but
Okay.
not spend any time on these.
Okay.
This happens to be the 2 waters we have.
Okay. Both in glass bottles.
No,
No?
only one is in glass bottle. It's really not practical to send large glass bottles from Russia. It's been tried, and the breakage is just would make the
Frightening.
make the price go out of sight. But there is a BPA, BPF free bottle, and I can answer many questions on that. I'm not a big foe of plastic bottles if they're the right plastic.
Mm-hmm.
So, but we make the lowest. It's so low, you don't even have to take it at that level. You can dilute this water. So you can dilute it up to 4 or 5 times and enjoy deuterium depletion at, say, even taking water that's 120 parts per million.
Well, so if you're doing it for yourself, just forget the family for a moment, just say for yourself, you're ordering this at one time, how much do you have to order to not keep ordering, because there are obviously shipment costs involved. So
yes.
if you were to guide people to their first adventure into this deuterium depleted water and they're contacting Light Water, how much are you guiding them to order, and what type of price point is there on that?
Okay, we suggest that people order 2 8-liter packs of this water right here.
Okay.
This is 2 liters.
Okay.
So each pack contains 4 of these. And we think that the average person would need 2 packs per month.
Per month.
And that price, and going the price of that to a consumer who goes on a regular shipment program is $160 per pack. So that cost is $320 per month. It's very high, but it used to be just weeks ago $480 per month.
Right.
So we significantly reduced the price by 33% recently due to advances in our production in Russia. And so the consumer is benefiting from this. And you do everything with this. So this, when this is diluted, you can make up to 24 liters just with 1 8-liter package of usable deuterium depleted water that will deplete the deuterium in your body.
Robert, when you were on our podcast previously, we talked about your water filtration system that's on the counter, primarily is the AquaTrue, right?
Correct.
How would you, if somebody invested in a water filtration system, and they certainly have spent money to show their commitment to purified water with RO and ultraviolet and so forth, how do you include the deuterium depleted water as part of the RO system?
Well, because this water is diluted, so you can dilute this with virtually any water. Your favorite bottled water, water from the AquaTrue is a perfect complement to diluting this. So I happen to use an AquaTrue. And so if I'm diluting this 2-to-1 or 3-to-1 or 4-to-1, I use the AquaTrue RO purified water.
I got it. Okay.
Which is still 150 parts per million. And commonly your audience is probably asking, oh, don't any purifiers reduce the deuterium?
Right.
None. No purifiers
of
any technology reduce the deuterium in water.
What if someone did not have a purification? Could they still use the water from the tap and still get
Could.
Yeah?
I mean, other than, yes, you're going to have maybe some contaminants from the tap, most certainly, but it doesn't matter. The tap is 150, RO is 150, distilled is 150, Mountain Valley is 150. Most of the bottled waters are about 150, with a few exceptions as low as 135.
Right. So just curious, because I sometimes have to buy bottled water, what are the ones that have the lowest bottle? And I'm sure our viewers want to hear that as well.
Well, I'm going to turn that to Victor because he is kind of keeps a running tab and does the test.
Okay, Victor, you're on 130. So we're looking at a 135.
I'll give you the general rule because everybody is all over the United States or the world, so they may not have access to local or regional water brands. So the general rule is that if it comes from a glacial source, then it will be reduced in deuterium by like Robert said, from 5 to 15%. So any water that is a glacial source, for example, in Colorado, there's El Dorado. In Los Angeles, home delivery, there's California Glacial, which is 142. The El Dorado is 139. So anything, I'm I haven't tested the waters in British Columbia yet, but others have, and they're also like Whistler. These are glacial sourced waters, and they're typically below 140.
Well, Victor, you and I share a love of Hawaii, and both of us lived on Kauai. There is a glacial source in Hawaii. Is that included in your list?
No, you mean on the Big Island?
Well, yes, the Big Island has a glacial source, and that's what my friend Jason Donovan is doing with Hawaiian Volcanic. You probably have heard of them.
Yeah, well, I look forward to testing it.
Yeah.
I haven't tested it, so I don't know on that one. I would suspect it's not too reduced. Certainly, there's no waters on Kauai that are below 150. In fact, the average, as you get closer to the equator, the average becomes 155 ppm.
Okay.
So,
well, if there's only 20,000 people that can benefit by this, how do we deal with the supply demand? I mean, it would seem like one hospital chain that is committed to health. Maybe that's an oxymoron, but we know there are some.
Demand can be increased. I mean, once demand increases, production can increase.
Okay, so it is a supply demand thing. I mean, there will be increased production. So, is your supply exclusive in Russia so that you will always be protected?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, you have a contract.
It's the most advanced and largest facility that we know of in the world.
And Victor, you're from the Soviet Union originally.
Yeah, I was born there. So, and this is kind of why I was turned on to deuterium depletion earlier than most people.
Right.
I got to read some of the Russian literature on this.
So, Robert, I know that you just said you reduced the price, but I also know that you were very generous with Water and Wellness, who, by the way, is one of my podcast sponsors. I don't know if you knew that. So we're working together with your group there. And that's full disclosure, by the way, from my viewers, that I am a big believer in Robert and what Robert has created with Water and Wellness, which is where you can buy the AquaTrue and other products that are health oriented. So I've already had an advertisement on the beginning of this podcast about Water and Wellness, Robert. You probably didn't hear that either. But at any rate, I know you offered a very generous discount. Would our viewers, for the first time that they order this, the 2 cases, would they be able to get a little bit of a further consideration? Is that fair to offer? I don't want to put you on the spot, but
no. I'm just trying to think. When you say the first time,
well,
I think that I think the problem with this, if we did it the first time, ends up not being our lack of willingness to do it.
Yeah.
But it makes the system of ordering almost impossible at the electronic level.
Well, I was going to ask if it could be ongoing, but I didn't want to be too greedy with asking.
Well,
but
let me say this: during this this radical price drop, we also cut our profit very dramatically.
I imagine.
And
yes.
So the only way from 33% drop in a brand new product is quite extensive.
I agree.
But we really wanted to make it available to people.
Okay.
And even large clinics that may order this by the pallet have a very, very small margin compared to other products that they do. And they just are taking advantage of the spectacular results that this product gives.
Right.
It's so time labor intensive and equipment intensive to make, and this is why there's so little of it.
Right.
To remove deuterium, as you can imagine, there's only 6 drops in a liter of water. It becomes very difficult.
Right.
So it takes a lot of energy. It takes a lot of very industrial equipment, and this is something that as time goes on will be improved upon, the efficiencies, and we've actually, like Robert said, we're actually been able to improve some of our efficiencies. So we were able to lower the price a bit because we're certainly in this because we believe in the product, and we believe everyone should have access to the product and makes it at a reasonable cost. So when you dilute down, let's say you take our 10 ppm as a concentrate, and you dilute that down to 100 and 22 parts per million, which is, mind you, still lower than 99% or 99.9% of the water on the planet. So if you dilute down to 122 parts per million, your cost becomes $4 per liter, which is essentially cheaper than a cup of coffee.
And bottled water, right?
So that's a very important point that he makes.
Right.
That somebody can really enter into a protocol of serious deuterium depletion by even giving the diluting this 10 part per million water to 122 parts per million, still significantly deuterium depleted, more than virtually any place on Earth, except for perhaps Antarctica.
Right.
And you're looking at less than your Starbucks visit a day.
Right. But so you're saying that one case with the 4 bottles that you said would last a month by normal, the average, you could actually extend the time that would last? Is that what
Oh my God, yes. Yeah, very seriously. In fact, most people, unless the only reason to get down into the below 100 deuterium depletion is if you are trying to, let's say, help any particular health conditions that are troublesome.
Right.
Okay. Deuterium depleted water does amazing things, or the act of depleting the deuterium in your body. The more you read, the more you will absolutely be amazed, including cellular replication, DNA. It just goes on. Right. Even things like depression respond rapidly to consuming and lowering your deuterium depleted water and lowering your deuterium.
Well, before we run out of time, are you being reviewed? I know everything in science is all about peer reviews, and I know this has been around, you said, since 1931, and mostly in the Soviet Union and the Eastern Bloc. Now that it's here in the U.S., is this something that's getting the attention? And if you can answer that question in 1 minute, because we're running out of time.
The most serious biohacking crowd, the most serious commentators in health right now are really giving a lot of attention to the benefits of deuterium depleted water.
Right.
There is one little issue. It is so powerful. Those of us who sell deuterium depleted water have to be very careful in how we address what it's capable of, as you can guess.
Right. You can't make claims, right?
You got it.
So, okay, let's talk about how people can order and then in this last minute. So the Lightwater, drinklightwater.com, is that the website?
Drink Lightwater, Lightwater, LITE, WATR. If they go to the, if they select 2 cases or more, then they'll see the discount. It's a 3-month subscription. Certainly you can cancel at any time. We don't hold you to it, but you do have to order 2 cases or more to get the discount, because 2 cases pretty much is kind of the minimum that you need per month in the beginning to deplete your levels.
And would it be okay if our viewers mention that they saw you on Ageless and Timeless, and that you note that, so that we have some kind of history of our viewers that are now on your program?
Absolutely. Put it in a note at checkout, and so we'll know where you heard about us.
Okay.
And we also have a very wonderful brochure and an excellent history written by Victor of the entire science and history and discovery of.
I am so blown away by the collateral material. It's graphically beautiful, Victor. Thank you for being so creative, and 2, it is informationally very complete. So thank you very much for all that effort. And
certainly, I consider this the most incredible biological discovery of our time.
Right.
So
on that note, we must end, but that is the perfect positive note to end. And so I'm going to say thank you to both of you for joining us today and sharing this knowledge. I did say at the beginning this would be a life-changing and game-changing, I guess, because many people, and I've asked a lot of people before this show, this podcast, have you heard of deuterium-depleted water? And I would say 99% of them have not. So you are getting the word out. I hope I can help you to get the word out with this podcast, and people looking at your site now will understand more about the importance of adding this to their regimen if they can justify doing so. So thank you again for coming on today, and I guess I need to get on your program now that I've listened to all of this.
Thank you for being ahead of the curve as usual.
Well, thank you, Robert. I appreciate that. I always try to be, but I learn a lot from you. That's for sure.
Thank you, Michelle.
Okay, take care.
Michelle.
Have a beautiful day.
Bye-bye.
Well, you know, there's so many different protocols that it gets confusing when we're trying to take care of ourselves and be our own best health regimen master. And I know from my early 20s, I have tried so many different modalities just to be out, as Robert said, in front of the curve. Thank goodness I've never been sick, and I never plan to be, and I think it's because I want to do the right thing all the time. However, making the right choices and not throwing your money away is, I think, one of the biggest challenges in the health and wellness world. So, you know, always be careful, always check if you can the efficacy of these products that you order. But as far as the deuterium depleted water, I think this is really an important modality that all people should be aware of. Not all are going to be able to afford $320 a month. I understand that. But to the point that you can, or the level that you can, definitely look into this very seriously. So with that, this is Michelle Hughes, and thank you very much for listening. Please subscribe to our podcast. agelessandtimeless.com is my website. Thank you very much, and have a beautiful day.
My love for you is immeasurable. My respect for you immense. You're ageless, timeless, lace and fineness, your beauty